So I got a little bit motivated by the new bracket changes and thought, how easy or hard is it to make sisay into a bracket 3? So here we have my sisay competitive bracket 3. It is currently a bracket 4, but we're going to change that, following the philosophies that is described here. Decks are souped up and ready to play beyond the strength of an average pre-constructed deck. Yep, I think we need to power that down a bit. They are full of carefully selected cards, with work having going on to figure out the best card of each slot. The games tend to be a little bit faster as well, ending a turn 2 or sooner than your core bracket 2 decks. This is also where players can begin playing up to 3 cards from the game change list, amping up the decks further. Of course, it doesn't have to have any game changing cards, but we're going to have that. These decks should generally not have any 2-card infinite combos that can happen cheaply in about the first 6 or so turns of the game, but it is possible for the long game could end with one being deployed even out of nowhere. And here's a problem, that 2-card combo is very vague and quite far away from actually how cEDH works. Most finishers are actually 1-card combos. For example, my deck contains Necrodominance and Necropotence that are definitely considered a 1-card combo that will assemble a 3-card combo in this case actually. I actually envisionized that the deck I'm going to be building is going to be very similar to my sisay 5C Please Don't Board Wipe that is on 60 creatures, and I haven't updated this list in a while. As you can see, there's a mana crypt here. This was actually a tournament deck that I brought when people had been stopped cutting board wipes, which meant that I could exploit the fact that no one was playing board wipes by just flooding the board with more creatures and take over the game that way. And it worked out pretty fine in that tournament. But since people have been including more board wipes, I've basically stopped playing this deck, more or less. But as Cyclonic Rift, one of the big problems that you run into is on the game-changing list. I think that there's going to be potentially less board wipes, meaning more creatures, more good. So let's begin by cutting away things. We don't need Opposition Agent, that one can go. Apparently Orcish Bowmaster is still like okay. We're going to keep Kinnan. We don't need Demonic Tutor. We have sisay, she can be your only tutor, honestly. We don't need Cyclonic Rift. We don't need Enlightened Tutor. We don't need Fierce Guardianship. We don't need Vamp Tutor. We have to cut Final Fortune too. As you can see, just above my head, unlimited extra turn cards, Final Fortune is one among them. You're not allowed to take extra turns, even though Final Fortune is a little bit of a different concept of, it's not chaining extra turns, so to say, but yeah. But we're going to cut it regardless. It's a very good card. Then we're going to cut Chromox, we don't need that. We don't need Lion's Eye Diamond. We don't need Mox Diamond. And as we're cutting so many rocks, we're going to cut Mox Opal too. We don't need Rhystic Study. We're going to keep Smothering Tide. And we don't need Underworld Breach. We don't need Ancient Tomb, but we're going to keep Gaia's Cradle. And we're going to cut Draenei Magistrate. We don't need that one either. And boom, suddenly this is a bracket 3, according to all discussions. But we're not quite done yet, as I personally feel that Necrodominance and Necropotence should be here among the cards on the game-changing list without a question. We're going to self-regulate and help out wizards here. So we're cutting those two as well. And now that we've basically cut away the entire Necropotence and Underworld Breach package, we can just start cutting Intuition. We don't need Born Upon a Wind anymore. We don't need Sevin's Reclamation anymore. Lion's Diamond is already gone, and because of that, Auriok Salvager goes away too. We don't need Gamble anymore now that Underworld Breach is gone. We're probably gonna end up with players playing something similar to me, so I don't think Mnemonic Betrayal is gonna be that good, so we're cutting that one too. We have already cut Opposition Agent, so we're going to cut this one as well. Now, so far it looks pretty good. We have self-regulated quite a lot, reducing a lot of the powerful cards and basically bringing the power level down drastically. I have heard talks about crop rotation being illegal or should go onto the game-changing list because of how good the Gaia's Cradle is. So to self-regulate further and believing that they are going to remove crop rotation as well, or add crop rotation to the game changer list, I'm cutting this one too, even though it should be in there. We also probably should cut Agatha Salt's Cauldron because of the potential so here's the big problem with the game changing rules, is that they are trying to showcase 2-card combos. But the thing is that 2-card combos isn't really how cEDH operates. It's more focused around sculpting something together. And Agatha Salt's Cauldron is basically a 1-card combo with sisay, because you're just tutoring forward with things. Like Gaia's Cradle, Agatha Salt's Cauldron, and a bunch of creatures will lead into finding the Revi Imperial Practitioner to untap Cradle, and then you activate again, you find the Blessed, and here you have infinite mana and infinite activations. And I believe that the core idea behind Bracket 3 is to power down, and if I were to follow their philosophies and how to operate things, I would probably end up trying to figure out ways to describe that Agatha Salt's Cauldron, sisay, Gaia's Cradle, Derevi is too strong, so we're going to self-regulate and remove Agatha Salt's Cauldron too, even though we're actually allowed to play it according to the rules. I'm not playing the Orochi Leaf Caller in that version. This is another version of Agatha Salt's Cauldron, because tap 1 green, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, so that Gaia's Cradle will basically tap for a CC activation if you have Orochi Leaf Caller and 5 creatures in play. And I think that would be too strong inside this pod, basically, in this deck. We're also going to cut Manamorphose, we're going to cut Force of Negation, I think we're gonna keep Mental Misstep, and Swan Song, and Noxus Survival, but there's probably gonna be a bunch of like snuff outs running around. I'm keeping Veil of Summer. I mean, it's usually going to be just 1 green mana, draw a card. It's gonna be good. I am gonna cut Lotus Petal. It might go back in the future. We're gonna keep Carpet of Flowers because it's still going to be a mana source. Mystic Remora should stay for now, but I can see a world where Mystic Remora starts to be weak if, as you can see, we've basically been cutting away sorcerers, instants, artifacts and stuff, and we're going to lean more and more into creatures. So honestly, I think that Mystic Remora is going to be a weak card inside this bracket, but it can stay for now. Utopia Sprawl is going to stay, because it's a color fixing card, it's like a Bird of Paradise, pseudo Birds of Paradise. Gemstone Caverns should be on the Game Changer list together with Ancient Tomb and Chromox, but I'm going to keep it for now. I would put it on the Game Changer list if I were Wizard of the Coast, following their philosophy. So how much weaker has this deck gotten overall in general? Are we gonna cut... are we gonna... Yeah, we're gonna cut that one. Nah, we're gonna keep the Elder Spirit Guide for now. And we're going to keep the Simian Spirit Guide too as well. I don't know, I feel like they should be on the Game Changer list. It's so hard to actually theorize around that Game Changer list. I think they should have something more like a point system like Canadian Highlander, if I'm gonna be honest. And in any case, how much weaker has this deck gotten? I think overall, it is starting to look more like a grinded deck, but we still have some really strong combos in it. So we have Derevi, Emil the Blessed, and Gaia's Cradle. And sisay can tutor for all of them. But it's going to take time, because we have cut Agatha Salt's Cauldron that is speeding up the process of making that combo fast. Now you have to manually find them one by one, you can't like trick it into happening. So what you're seeing here is a slow 3-card combo, which is following something of their concept. These decks should generally not have any 2-card infinite combos, we don't have that can happen cheaply in about the first 6 or so turns of the game. But it's possible for the long game could end with one being developed out of nowhere. And we've cut like a lot of rocks, like Chromox is gone, we've cut the Carpet of Flower, crop rotation to find Gaia's Cradle, we've cut tutors, so putting this together is going to require an enormous amount of mana. So I think we're actually following the concept that is written right there. Seedborn Muse, on the other hand, is actually going to speed it up, but we can't tutor for Seedborn Muse currently, so we have to naturally draw into it. You know what, I'm actually going to be self-regulating even more and cutting Seedborn Muse. I'm really powering down below bracket 3 here actually. Okay, it's stronger than it's stronger than a precon, but someone could build the same sisay list that I'm doing and have a much stronger version that I'm coming up with here. We have another combo inside here too. We have Esika, God of the Tree, and Nayela the Blade Blossom, and Darevi. Now people could argue that I am not following the logic, because Darevi, Nayela is a 2-card combo basically. On the other hand, it's actually a little bit tricky to assemble that, harder than you think. It's not something I'm usually going for. But for those that don't know, Nayela and Esika is also a 2-card combo. It's just very slow. However, we are gonna cut Nayela anyways, just to be nice. We're also gonna cut Valley Flood Caller because no one is... We have already cut the entire Necropotent package and we're just leaning more and more into creatures here. When it comes to the lands, I think we're going to add lands, increase the land count, because Chromox, Mox Diamonds and Mox Opal is usually taking some of the land spots. So we're gonna begin by adding Shadowblood Ridge. It's this land. Then we're adding Darkwater Catacombs, Mossfire Valley. The reason I actually like these lands is because, first of all, they are in everyone's view casual, but with Gaia's Cradle you can convert that green mana into blue-black mana, which is gonna help you activate CC more often. Following the same logic, we're going to add Rakdos Signet to also filter colorless mana or green mana into black-red mana. Because this is going to be a deck that is going to overproduce green mana that we need to convert into colored mana to activate sisay. We're going to add Elvish Mystic, adding Fyndhorn Elves. We already have Avacyn's Pilgrim, Bird of Paradise, Deathrite Shaman, Bloom Tender, Ignoble Hierarch, and Noble Hierarch. And Llanowar Elf is already in there. And we're actually going to add Delighted Halfling too. Now, it produces colorless mana, which means it won't really do anything good when you're activating sisay, but with cards like Rakdos Signet, you can convert the colorless mana when you're activating sisay into colored mana. We're going to add Oath of Nissa, as we're going to increase the land count and creature count. This is a good 1-drop legendary. I actually think we need to increase the land count a little bit more, like up to 32 at the very least. Adding Exotic Orchard, I'd rather have that printing. We have to cut Emergency Zone, I forgot about that, because we're not on Necropotence anymore. I like Opal Palace. I mean, if we're going to have more and more longer games, potentially, like this is going to have longer games compared to what it used to have before. And with Opal Palace, you can make your sisay bigger, so if someone actually Toxic Deluge away all your creatures, all your legendaries, you can cast sisay on a naked board state, and with Opal Palace, she will enter bigger, being able to activate sooner. Going to add Mana Confluence. And we're going to add Sky Cloud Expanse. It is the Azorius Signet land that will also help you with making Cradle tap for more mana, or colored mana. I like the old printings a little bit more. But now we have 32 lands. You could argue that we're playing a lot of dual lands, but you can just swap these out for shock lands, so to say. The price tag have drastically dropped. This is starting to look more like a budget commander actually. If you actually swap the dual lands for shock lands, it's going to drastically go down. We're going to add Grand Abolisher. We already have our own Grand Abolisher in Planeswalker and Kutsil, but we're gonna add one more. Even a 4th one, Ranger Captain of Eos, because it's going to tutor for a 1-drop. We have a bunch of those. I'm going to add Yisan, the Wandering Bard. You could really call this deck a 5-colored Yisan build actually. And like a turn 2 Yisan is not impossible. First start of the game, Bird of Paradise, 2nd turn Yisan, 3rd turn activate Yisan, and then you just continue. Later Yisan will find Bloom Tender, and then it will find the Revi Imperial Practitioner, and then you're off to the races. Gilded Drake is gonna be great in this metagame. I have a feeling that people are gonna complain that Gilded Drake is not really bracket free, but I would argue that it is. I've seen casual players play Gilded Drake in their casual builds. We're also going to add the smaller version, Volatile Storm Drake. If the metagame is going to continue with like lots of creatures in the bracket free, then stealing creatures is gonna be good. Which takes us to a 1-card combo we are going to add, Treachery. I've actually played this before and I love it. So this is a 5 mana cost spell. When Treachery comes into play, untap up to 5 lands. You control enchanted creature. Cool. So when you cast Treachery, you're going to basically untap 5 lands down here, which is going to generate a new CC activation. It is basically, you could say, free to cast. But what you're doing then is that we're going to add Aminatou Fate Stitcher. -1, exile another target permanent you own, return it to battlefield under your control. So you're flickering Treachery, you're stealing the creature you stole again. And by the way, with Treachery you can steal someone's commander to gain color identities so you can find Amenatu. So if you have sisay in play, 5 lands, a Treachery in hand, you can theoretically win. Then we're adding Nikobolas the Dragon God, which can copy Amenatu's ability to flicker Treachery once more. And then we're adding Oath of Teferi as well as an enchantment, which allows you to activate double on each planeswalker, meaning that Amenatu, Nikobolas and Oath of Teferi is going to sit there and loop infinitely. And this is where the point of like, ooh, suddenly we're using Treachery, a 1-card combo, to assemble a 3-card combo. However, I think we're following the logic a little bit because you're required to have 5 lands to make this work. So it's gonna be slow, and we don't have a single tutor that can tutor for Treachery inside this build. As you can see, there's no Enlightened tutor or no Demonic tutor, so we have to naturally draw into it. But we're going to add a little bit more Planeswalker, Ashok Dream Render. And this could be actually how you finish the game. You're sitting there with these 2 flickering Ashiok infinitely and making Ashiok exile all opponents' libraries. We also have Emil the Blessed and Kinnan, and with Kinnan you can find Orcish Bowmaster and flicker Orcish Bowmaster infinitely and just kill everyone too. But we are going to add a very cool concept, Brago. I really like this guy inside sisay. So you could really view this as a 5-color sisay build. This is actually how I began playing sisay the first time it came. That, wait, Brago together with Planeswalkers and together with Oath of Nissa is actually really good. Because with Brago you can like double activate. And by the way, Rakdos Signet with Brago is also really good. Because of that we're going to add Oath of Chandra, which is an enchantment that will deal damage when it comes into play. And with Brago you can make it flicker. And with sisay you can tutor for it. And if there's a board wipe on creatures, sisay is going to stay with a higher power and toughness. We're going to add more signets, Azorius Signet and Orzhov Signet. As you can see, we're avoiding signets that taps for green because we are going to overproduce green with our Llanowar elves and such. I actually also want to have Iset Signet, by the way, too. And if you keep adding signets like this, you can eventually add Mox Opal as well, potentially. I'm going to add Dak Faden. Personally like the card. -2 steal target artifact. Now you normally steal the One Ring, but you're not going to run into as many One Rings in this bracket because the One Ring is a game-changing card, but you can still steal like artifacts. And with Brago you can flicker Dak Faden to do it again. And by the way, with Brago you're going to flicker your sisay and all your other creatures, so you will have blockers for your Planeswalkers. And by spreading out this, like for example we have 38 creatures, but we have 5 Planeswalkers, we have a bunch of artifacts and a bunch of enchantments. We're spreading out and diversifying ourselves, so when that board wipe happens, we're not equally affected. Because I do think that there's a chance that there's gonna be like a lot of creature board wipes that could set you back to the Stone Age. Because of that, we're going to diversify a little bit more and add Wild Growth as well. And Tiny Bones joins up as well. When Tiny Bones enters the battlefield, exile any number of target player, each discard a card. That's good. It's a 1-mana legendary 1-drop, and with Brago you can flicker that. And whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target player each mills and lose 1 life. Underworld Breach is gone, so milling opponents is actually not that bad anymore, and you're going to sit here and like flicker Tiny Bones and flicking your legendary creatures with Brago, so if you're going into that very grindy late game, you can start to accumulate some cool stuff. Also, Chandra is slow burning people too, because whenever you're flickering your Planeswalkers, you're burning opponents. We're gonna be a little bit responsible and add Abrupt Decay to this list, as well as Assassin's Trophy. I think they might come in handy. Like, Opposition Agent is a big hurdle for this deck, but it's on a game changer list, so we're not going to run into that many Opposition Agents. But still, it could be good to like have a few, like there's gonna be Cursed Totems and creatures can't activate and such. By the way, we're adding Drana and Linvala as well. Now we have some anti-creature activations ourselves. The last card I'm going to add is Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, because that is a variant to Bloom Tender and Fabro Elder, becoming a potential 1-card combo. And yeah, it's great with sisay. You win the game with this one because you activate, you find Darevi, untap Selvala, activate it again, find Emil, and then you flicker Darevi, and then you find you untap Selvala, and then you have infinite mana and you win the game. So what do you think? That's it. That's a 100 card list. It's a big mix of a lot of different things. We have reduced power level quite drastically, and by removing a lot of fast mana, the only one we have is Sol Ring, which I honestly think should be on the game changer list. I really would like to cut this one, and by doing that we're going to actually slow down the pace. For example, we do have some really fast ways of winning this game, but we have to be lucky and naturally draw into them, and we have to have some we don't have fast accelerations towards them. We have to play it kind of slow. You could slow down this build even further by cutting Simeon Spirit Guide, Elvish Spirit Guide, removing Sol Ring, but I have actually personally played this deck in some variations to this, and it is rather slow. It's not gonna like win games that fast, because you're gonna have to sit like develop your mana base with dorks and artifacts in a little bit slower pace, and eventually you can start to activate sisay, but it's going to be first like an interactive sisay, like you're going to find Chandra, you're gonna find Tiny Bones, maybe Oath of Nissa, and then you are later going to find like Kinnan, maybe Drana, and then suddenly, when you have started to accumulate enough mana, you can start to take over the game. You could literally cut a lot of different combos here, like you could cut Oath of Teferi, and you could cut Gaia's Cradle, or maybe cut Darevi, to be honestly, and just go for more mid-range grindy value with Braggle. Like, you could change this list into a 5-color Yisan, 5-color Braggle, and just make it into good stuff that is taking over the game slowly. Because, trust me, flickering Nicobolas the Dragon God with Braggle, that's fun. And honestly, it would be on the bracket-free concept. And if that's not on bracket-free concept, then we're gonna have a big disparity among what people are gonna view bracket-free to be. Because some people are watching this video saying, this is too strong for bracket-free, and some people are gonna say, this is too weak for bracket-free. So, there you go. But I have to say, I like this build. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I do plan to make more videos like this, looking into and talking about the bracket-free, or potentially just different ways to improve your deck, because the goal of this channel is to help you build better decks and find better card choices and potentially inspire you in some cool ways. Like, I've showcased a lot of cool interactions here and some cool gimmicky ways to make your build work. In any case, take care guys, and I'll see you in the next one.